Ele guarago, ele guaragona, ele guarago, ele guaralaluye. Ashe moyuba orisha, ele guaragolona, ele guarago, ele guaragolona, ele guarago, ele guaralaluye. Ashe moyuba orisha, ele guaragolona, uguanile, ugualona, alawele walindi, walile wayeru.
Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show. As the rain and the clouds come by, the elements are at work, and I get a chance to be joined by a dear friend of the program and a beautiful cat, Bill Summers. Welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Jay Feinberg Show. How you doing, Jay?
You got some more you want to say, or you want? I have a question. Yeah.
Add questions.
So important to enlighten peeps. We did a classic radio interview a couple years ago when you talked about L'Ouverture Toussaint. Okay, and you talked about how the French could not penetrate Haiti because, I mean, these guys had sticks and rocks and stones, but he was getting them so enlightened and inspired by the drum. But are there other people in the lexicon of diaspora that you can talk about besides Toussaint?
Yeah, there was a guy in Cuba, I guess correctly pronounced. There were several people there that I kind of admired there because of the level of work they did spiritually and as drummers. And one of them, especially his name was, they called him Okilakpa.
Okilakpa.
Yeah, his name was Pablo Roche. And he was a Olu Bata, an Omoanya, he was a priest of the drum. He was an ordained priest. Not just, I play drums, which I made one or someone gave me one and I'm just hanging out and I'm hitting it. No, he had to actually study under a master as someone who was into Kung Fu would with a sensei, or judo, in Japan or China with karate or Kung Fu or whatever. But it's a very highly stylized form of drumming, and especially amongst the Lukumi, the people that were of Yoruba descent that came to Cuba, and for him to be able to make that music flourish and train other drummers and be a part of a movement that helped a certain aspect of spiritualism coming from Africa. He helped it survive, and now it's all over the world. People are trying to play these drums and get this training. So it's really deep, it's a very deep thing so I look at him like a revolutionary. I look at he's like Toussaint, he's like Martin Luther King, he's like Malcolm X.
I dig. Did he have was he involved in war? I mean, was he involved in trying to defend his own land?
Well, if you're in Cuba, as many people say, Cuba, you know.
Cuba, yeah.
It ain't their land anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
It's all turf.
Well, you know, I mean,
yeah.
you know,
I know.
I really look at the planet when people say, where do you live? I'm pretty much, well, I live in the universe. I kind of look at it bigger. The sky is not the limit, and so when people discuss, well, where are you from? Well, I'm from planet Earth. I'm not trying to pinpoint it to a city or a specific place because it's so small. The planet is so infinitesimal in comparison to the universe. It's really, well, I'm from here, and then we talk about. I said, well, what do you mean by that? They said, well, Paris is a room in my house. You know, in Afghanistan is a room in my house. And
I love
there's
it.
a room
I
in my
love
house,
it, man.
And I live in this house. And so, you know, I travel from room to room. You know what I'm saying? But I think that people have to have. I think he probably had that saying. He was displaced. He was enslaved. He was brought there
Against his will.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Absolutely.
he wasn't like trying. He wasn't no pleasure cruise. He didn't buy a ticket. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, it's really amazing what happened on that particular island and in the islands like Haiti and like New Orleans. There are a lot of similarities because New Orleans is the northernmost Caribbean country. To me, it is. This is not a part of the United States in any form or fashion. If you have to come here, you find that out. The streets are not like any other streets in America. You know what I'm saying? It's like the Caribbean. It's very, very reminiscent of Cuba, of Havana, and Bahia, and these really special holy places on the planet where music and the type of music was played for the universe. Like you're playing rhythms like this guy Oki Lagpa. He was playing rhythms for Yemaya, the ocean. Ado Pa Yemaya. He was playing rhythms like Meta Chango for thunder and lightning. He was playing rhythms for Olokun, the bottom of the ocean, and for Oshun, fresh water. So to know rhythms for the trees is incredible. Where you're not playing for a crowd of people who are paying you paying a ticket price to see a show. And when these guys perform, and I've studied the same music and I play for ceremonies, nobody applauds. You're not, you know, when you perform, you get your gratification from seeing the result of what happens when you play the drums and people dance to them and sing the proper songs and move the proper way.
Right. It's not quantifiable result.
Yeah, and it's not something that you can make up. You have to study it. Every aspect.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about this program, KID. Knowledge.
Oh, Club KID.
Club KID. Now, I want you to break down each of the acronyms.
Well, Club, we spell K-L-U-B, just for...
yeah, because it's the hip thing.
Club, yes.
But I wanted the...
And KID is
yes.
K period, I period, D period. K is knowledge, I is independence, and D is determination.
Let's break down each one of those, okay? Because in your career, let's start with discipline. What does discipline mean?
Knowledge, independence, and determination.
Excuse me, determination. That's much more.
Yeah, determined.
I
mean, I can break that down because knowledge is something that will get you. It'll get you places.
It will.
It opens doors. It's the first thing. You cannot move forward on this planet as a human being without knowledge. It's not going to happen. That means you know how to suck the breast. You find it. You get to it.
Suckle it.
Yeah, you get knowledge because you know how to do it. That's knowledge, you know, and you take it from there and go to the next step, you know. Well, mama's not letting me do that anymore. Well, here's the bottle. I know how to grab this sucker and suck on it and get the milk out of it. You know, so it just graduates. Independence, once you have knowledge, you can become independent because what do I mean by that? Well, if you know that it hurts to be hit, then don't hit. That's a part of knowledge. So that brings about intelligence. Means that you've been given the power to take what you learn and operate on the planet correctly. Okay, that means that if you know it's wrong, or you have some knowledge that will help other people, you're obligated to share that with them because that's been entrusted to you. Because a lot of people don't have that knowledge. They don't have they can't gain the independence that you have because you have the knowledge and you know how to use it. So now, what does that mean? Oh, I'm in trouble because that means I've been given an extra dose of something, and I'm obligated to share it with these other people because they don't see it. I'm the light because I can show you through the tunnel. I've got the light. Okay, so let's walk together. It's my obligation to take you through it. I have to.
You keep using that word obligation.
Well, obligated.
Who was the guy that instilled? Who put that in who seared that into your mind? Obligation is a strong word, especially when it comes to sharing. We have a hard time sharing.
Let me say this. My twist on it is this.
Yeah.
I'll bring it into musical terms. If I write a song with someone, and then they take all the publishing and the residuals, I've learned a lesson. I'm not gonna get angry at this person. He should have shared that knowledge with me. He should have, but he didn't have the understanding of the knowledge to use it properly. You don't use it to hurt other people. You use it to help other people. That's the obligation part. There's where the obligation comes in. Am I obligated because I got a whole field of corn to give you some of it? Well, if you're starving, maybe. If the other people are starving, you know what I'm saying? Maybe you have so much corn you can't eat it all. You got
a house. You got 3 houses full of Legos. Yeah. You're not even touching one of those houses. Right.
It's just like
yeah, but I mean, was that always part of? Yeah.
Man, that's been like that forever. I can't even see how life could be any other way. You know, you're obligated to take care of your kids, ain't you? You have kids. That's an obligation. You know, they can't walk. You're obligated then. Well, how do they get to the food? How do I teach them how to get to the table or use the fork or their fingers to pick it up? I mean, you know, somebody has to show you that. That's your parents. They're obligated. You have an obligation. Once you have the kids, you're obligated. You know what I'm saying? Once you learn how to wipe your ass, you're obligated to keep it clean. How's that?
Bill Summers is waxing poetic here. You know, listen, I
don't know what to tell you.
No, I dig. I want to ask you something.
Oh,
you know, because
you
this is your house. This is your room in your house in the universe in New Orleans. What's the closest thing to hoodoo and voodoo that's still going on that you participate in, if at all?
In this house, I'm a priest.
Okay, break it down.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know, you know.
Or maybe break it down rhythmically. I mean,
I was ordained in Cuba, a priest of Elegua.
People want to hear your voice. Project out.
Okay, dude. So Here we go. I was ordained in Havana many years ago as a priest of Elegua, which is a Yoruba saint. Let's call it a saint. I don't know, for lack of a better word, because people in the New World, they know saint. They know the word saint. So, you know, the Catholics have St. Peter, St. Paul, St. Mary, this, blah, blah, blah. Africans have saints too. You know, so this, you know, I just have gravitated especially because of the music that's around this particular practice. It's like I said, I play bata, and it's a specific type of drum that's played for ceremonies. And it's so precise and so specific and it's so deep. It's so beautiful that I just wanted to be a part of it. So I just became a part of all the spiritual aspects around it. So, you know, and I run a house. I have a house. It's called Ile Iluanya, House of the Sacred Drum. So I've been given specific drums from a priest who was a ordained minister of the drum. His name was Chacha Esteban Vega de Bacallao y Alo de Oshun de Matanzas. This is where I got my Anya drums. So there's a spirit that's put in the drum. It's actually, the drums actually have to be fed. They have clothes that are put on them. They have to be maintained. They can't be put on the floor. They have to have, the only people that can touch the drums have to be in a fraternity called Anya, or in Africa, Ayan. So that's the most beautiful part of being a musician is I'm not playing for people in the audience, I'm playing for the universe. To be able to do that is supreme to me. I mean, it's just, the fun factor is immense. You know, so it's just part of. That's what the priest part, but you had to ask me another question.
Well, no, but I don't. You answered it perfectly. The idea is that I want you to talk to.
But you asked me about the spiritual places in New Orleans that like hoodoo, voodoo.
Well, because the late great Charlie Neville, I did 2 amazing interviews with that cat, and he talked about Marie Laveau, the queen of voodoo.
What did he say? Did he have much to say about it?
Well, I mean, he talked about the fact that she was a performer for rich white audiences.
I believe that.
So I guess that's
what
tipped me off. So I was like, I'm going to ask Bill if there's anything.
Well, there's two phases. There's 2 aspects of voodoo, hoodoo in New Orleans. Most of it is bullshit. I mean, most of it is BS. Okay, you can go to the French market and you can buy a voodoo doll, and it might even come with some needles and pins. But this is not voodoo.
That's tourist.
It's tourist BS.
Okay.
And so this Marie Laveau thing has been played up to the point where it's a commodity. It's something that can be sold. There's a voodoo football team. There's voodoo barbecue. There's a voodoo fest, and it has nothing at all to do with voodoo. There are people. This is just a fact. It's not a racial thing, but there are people. There are white New Orleanians who travel to Haiti and have some money, and they get initiated. Okay, they pay for it, and then they come back and they think they're the queen of voodoo because they went to Haiti and they paid someone to initiate them. And they gave them a couple of things and said, "Well, do this, do that. Now you know what you're doing." But it doesn't work like that, And there's a lot of that here. So there's the Voodoo Museum, there's a voodoo shop over here and over there. Ain't no Haitians in it, ain't no black people around it. It ain't voodoo. You cannot have Eskimo food without an Eskimo cooking it. Okay? It's real simple. It's not even a racial issue. It's like, I want Cuba. The other day, my godfather was here. His name is Akwaye Olodun. He's a priest also. And he wanted to eat some Cuban food. So I'm calling all the little restaurants around the city. The first thing I'm asked is a Cuban cooking in the kitchen. That's it. If I want to play taiko drums from Japan, I'm not going to hire Joe Kovorskowitz to come and play the gig. I'm going to find me some Eskimo. You have to understand. It's not a racial issue. It's a cultural thing where if you want to do something, especially in New Orleans, people have come here after the fact, after Marie Laveau, after French stopped being spoken and some African languages, and people who came from the north or from other states came in here and took what was culturally happening and commercialized it. Okay, so it's very difficult to find the real thing. It's here, but they're not. People are not standing up and saying, "Here, we're over here. Come over." They're very secretive now because of the exploitation. So the people that are doing the work like that or are embraced in Lukumi or Yoruba-based religious Ifa or Vodun, or any number of things. There's a candomblé house here from the Brazilian side of things, which does a lot of the candomblé. They teach capoeira, but they're not out in the street saying, "Come on over here.
Come pay, and we'll initiate you into some."
No, that ain't happening like that.
Are you able to hit peeps that maybe are searching for that authenticity? Can you?
Well, we know when it comes to you, like priests. Like if I'm a priest, so I do readings called Dilogun, which is a very ancient practice of divination that is based on Ifa, I-F-A. Ifa is one of the oldest. It's old as I Ching. It's old. It's maybe older.
How do you spell it?
I Ching. I-C-H.
No, not I Ching. Ifa.
I-F-A.
I-F-A.
Yeah,
it's old as I Ching.
Yes, Ifa is coming from Dahomey, Nago, but it's Yoruba, really heavily Yoruba. Benin, Vodun is out of all of it's really rooted in the same thing. There's one tree it comes from, and that's Benin. okay, and a lot of people know where that is. It used to be called Dahomey, and so many enslaved people were taken from that area, and they brought their spiritual practices to the United States. And the only problem is, because the people that were bringing these Africans were Christians, and in many cases Roman Catholics, they were going to these places and enslaving people under the guise of converting them to Christianity, in other words, saving their souls.
Because they were considered savages,
Yeah,
so they needed the Christian. They needed
you need well, not but even their brand of Christianity.
Absolutely.
You know, there are different types of Christianity. You know, so there, you know.
Is it you're sure it was Roman Catholic?
Pope, P-O-P-E, Pope. Vatican, Roman Catholicism.
I dig.
The French were Roman Catholics. The Spanish, the Portuguese, even the English, until King Henry VIII decided he wanted a divorce, and the Vatican would not sanction it, so he started his own church. Martin Luther King did the same thing. Most of these things stemmed out of Roman Catholicism, which before the Romans were crucifying the Christians. They were feeding them to the lions, okay? But Christians became so powerful, they had to. Constantine decided, hey, look, I saw something in the sky. We need to be Christians now. So they kind of made it their thing. They kind of took it over, and their brand of Christianity became adopted by many cultures, you know. And those countries that, or people that decided to go to Africa and take slaves had to, that's what they used as a pillar of their righteousness, because they were getting sanctioned by the church. So that meant they were doing a good thing by going and saving these poor savages. You know, when these savages have.
Well, I mean, I just did another interview with the great poet, keyboardist Brian Jackson, Gil Scott-Heron's collaborator. He's a great cat, and he was talking about indentured servants who were the poor Europeans who came over with the slaves. Those first few interracial rebellions were too much for the plantation owners. So they looked at the indentured servants and they said, you know, listen, after a few years, you work this, you're still going to be poor, but you're going to get your own land. And you're not going to be like those savages there. They're still going to be slaves. So to me, that doesn't show up in the history books. And a part of my show is really trying to course correct our cultural history, because we're still dealing with that today.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I mean,
ignorance is at an all-time high. I'll tell you that.
You know, I talked to Paul Boudreau. He said that it's worse
now,
worse now than it was in the 70s and 80s. That was mind-blowing to me.
But that's true. It is worse. It is worse. Yeah.
How can vibration in your world, how do you do that in your world to push back against that sort of this current arc of our time? Because you know what the danger part of it is? When you pay for commodification of spiritual language, then you stifle culture. Larry Willis said it too. Harlem, I'm not trying to turn the clock back, but you had Sugar Ray Robinson. The culture was right out on the street, okay? Yeah. It was right there. Now it's all pushed off the street, or it's all gentrification. So my worry is that when the greed factor gets so big and you commodify the spirit, then you're looking at autocracy.
Yeah, well, there's one king above them all, karma. What goes around comes around. Okay? It's inevitable. You do bad deeds, you continue to do them, it just comes back around. Eventually, you know, it comes back to haunt you. Now it may be generations later, but your grandson or your great grandson is going to pay the debt, even though you think it may not happen. I have things happen to me like this where a white person will say to me, "Why don't you get over it?" Yeah, but they say this to you. You know, it's like, well, you know, it was so long ago that why don't you get over the fact that your people were enslaved, and we're in the 20th century, 21st century, blah blah blah. So can't you get over it? No. Would you ask a Jew to get over Auschwitz? No, they're not gonna get over it. I've been to Auschwitz. I've seen it. I wouldn't get over it. Or would you get over Hiroshima? I stood on the spot where they dropped the bomb. I went there to see what it would feel like to stand in the epicenter of where that bomb dropped. And no, I would not expect the Japanese to get over it. I wouldn't even think it was possible if they could. I would say, well, you've done something that no other race of people has ever been able to do. You know, it's just impossible to see the devastation and the harm, even though it was under the guise of ending the war. The people that dropped that bomb, the actual men in that plane, they suffered greatly after it. In the cycles of the lineage of their family.
It's
just something you can't. Well, here, and the other thing is, to me, this is a huge contradiction, and this happens with African Americans in America, whatever. The fact that you dropped a bomb, it was an atomic bomb, and I don't say we because I ain't in that. I'm so happy that I'm black, and that I was abused because the bomb that exonerates me from saying we dropped the bomb. No, you dropped the bomb, and you're paying for it. You're paying for it. There's no way around it. It's just terrible, man. It's like, I didn't feel any karma when I stood on the spot, and when I went to the A-bomb museum, which is only a few feet away from where the bomb dropped. Even though you want to end a war, 1 week later they dropped another one. So how do you? Well, I thought that was enough right there to tell. I would have put my hands up like this if you've seen the devastation. Number one, the flash from the bomb. The bomb didn't hit the ground. It exploded 500 feet above ground, and the flash from the bomb was so strong that if your eyes were open, you were instantaneously blinded. Okay, so now everybody's blind. Then there's the explosion, which goes for miles and miles, and I don't know the exact amount of miles, but it's a lot of miles. And when it gets to the end of the explosion, there's an implosion of equal force that comes back to the
physics.
center.
We're getting physics lesson here.
Yeah, and then there's the fire, the heat. People jumped into rivers, and it turned into a giant human soup. I remember there was a wall. There's a A-bomb dome there. It's the shape of a dome, like the white, in Washington, the Washington Dome or whatever that is. And so there were trees around this building. Well, the trees were gone, but the shadows were still there on the building. That's how strong the light was. They had a wall.
Wait, hold on. The trees were gone. The shadows were still there.
The shadows, like there were trees. So look, the bomb, the blast, and the light from it was so strong, the building was a negative. The shadows stayed. They had a wall in the museum where you could see a ladder and a guy in the shadow of a guy painting the wall, but he was gone. You see what I'm saying? But the shadow was still there. Now that's pretty deep. And there were things like people who were wearing a T-shirt. The explosion or whatever, the nuclear reaction fused the T-shirt into their skin. So there are people walking around to this day from that who survived that bomb in Hiroshima who may have a shirt on that's in their skin. It was a horrible thing to see. Terrible. So it's things like the reason I'm like I don't know. I guess God made me a certain way. I want to try to change things. I know that's difficult to do.
Well, no, this goes back to people say get over it. You say no, there's still work to be done.
Yeah,
that's the point.
No, this shit ain't.
We're with a doctor an ethnomusicologist and a rhythmic doctor. Can you talk about some of these instruments you have here and explain to the audience what they are?
Yeah, well, this is what I was playing earlier. This is a shakeré.
Shakeré.
Shakeré. Yeah, it's S-H-E-K-E-R-E. Well, it's really spelled S with a dot under it. E, say S-E-K-E-R-E. but the S with the dot means it's a SA sound, but that's Yoruba. It's people who kind of originated that name for this particular instrument. Now, I have some other ones that are hanging up on the wall there. This one has plastic beads, but the real deal, and I don't make it with plastic, but this is like commercial. I made this one, and it serves its purpose. If I go on the road, it's kind of better to take this than the others I have that if something happens to them, it's harder to replace because.
What's the material of the more real deal ones?
Well, they're right there. I don't know if you can.
Yeah, we'll capture that up there.
Yeah, they're up there. So yeah, those are seeds and wooden beads.
Oh, I dig.
It's all natural. The sound is really a lot different. But this is one of my favorite instruments. Shakerade is so special. And it's also actually an instrument used during ceremonies. In Cuba, they call it güiro, G-U-I-R-O, güiro. And so for some ceremonies, you play güiro. It's 3 of these, one big one, a middle-sized one, and a small one. And each one has its parts. Now, you can find these in a music store, but a lot of people don't know the parts. They just get it and shake it or whatever they do with it.
Well, with the opening piece that you played, you were playing through different grooves. It was so beautiful, man. It was like, you know, you were letting it, like you were playing through rhythms.
Yeah, and then there's a you can't really, I'm sure they can't hear the bass tone that's coming.
Not as good as.
Yeah, they probably can't hear that. You hear more of it. But the gourd, or calabash or calabasa, is a fruit. It's actually a squash.
Right.
It grows green on the vine like a watermelon. And when you take it off, you can see the navel right there. That's where the vine connected to it. And actually, when it's growing, initially a flower comes where it's connected here, and then that flower turns into a little ball, and then it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until it gets to size. You know, it can get like this instrument, the dosendoni.
Let's break that one down. I mean, this is.
Yeah, I made this instrument by looking at another one. And this was I would say this is the mother of the banjo.
The mother of the banjo?
Yeah, the instruments like that came from West Africa. You had the kora, and you have this instrument, the dosendoni. So, you know, this only has 6 strings. And it's not tuned, but you can hear it has a beautiful sound. And it's shaking, that buzzing sound is from this kashinka string at the top. So if you hit the string, that's supposed to be here. Right, so when you play it, and actually you hold it more like this, you know, and you play it with your thumbs. Now what I did is, I looked at one, so I got a gourd. This is a gourd. And this is a big gourd. I had to cut it. And then this is bamboo. These sticks here, I went to a bamboo grove here in New Orleans and cut down some bamboo trees. And I cut these out. And these go under the skin. It helps keep the skin taut, but it's also part of, you know, the sound. And this is the bridge, which can collapse. I could collapse it. So I had to carve this. I carved this little bridge out. And
did you actually install the bamboo underneath the skin?
Everything you see, I did. I had to do it all.
Yeah. See, I would have. I would have broken. That's craftsmanship, right?
Well, you know, this actually this part of it.
Yeah.
Is a broomstick. This is actually a broomstick that I just tapered. I just figured out how to taper it, and a guy actually had an instrument that I looked at to do this one. So I had something. A lot of African instruments are like that, like with bata, like these drums here.
Yeah.
Let me give you. Of all the drums that I play, this is my favorite drum, the bata. And these are Cuban style. But this is something you can't buy in the store. And now they do sell them. Different companies they make bata, but you know they're commercial. They have hardware on them. You can tune it with a wrench. But this is bata carved from cedar wood. So I actually got the log. I went to Cuba and got some logs brought them back and carved 3 drums. And so you have to know how to do it. It's just a process that take you years to understand how to put this together properly.
Oh, I mean,
right. So then you have these bells.
lifetimes, I think.
You have these bells on them. They call this the shaworo. And the bells on the smaller end are called shawori. But they have their own purpose too. They have a magical quality, and they do certain things when you play them for ceremonies. These drums aren't consecrated, so we call them abericula. And they don't hold their secret inside. When they're consecrated, there's something put inside the drum that has spiritual powers. It is very, the drums are fed. It's pretty deep stuff.
Well, you gotta clothe them.
You gotta, but not deep. These are abericula, meaning they don't have a secret. That's why I can put them down. I can't if they were consecrated, you can't put them on the floor if they're consecrated. They have to be,
right.
If you do, they have to be on a special mat. You see what I'm saying? Even with these, I try not to put them on the floor. But sometimes, I don't feel that I'm being disrespectful if I have to sometimes lay them down. I try to put them on something. Now, this is the smallest drum. That big drum that I showed, this one is called Iya Ilu. And that translated means mother drum.
Mother drum.
Iya is mother. So this drum has a simple pattern and usually stays fixed. The mother drum and the father drum, they converse. So the mother will say something, and there's an answer that the itotole will give.
A call and response.
Yeah, but the most important part of it is it's a lesson in family, because it's not bata without all the drums. So that means you don't have a family without all the parts. You have to have the mother, the father, and the children.
Absolutely.
And they have to stay together. You understand? So that's a lesson that a young African boy would learn if he was playing bata in Africa or kukuba. It teaches them things about keeping their family together. It's something they don't really have to say. They learn it from the relationship of the drums. They say, oh, the okonkolo, without the okonkolo, we can't, then nothing's really happening. Without the iya, without the mother, it's not whole. Without the itotole, we can't really play bata. So it's a lesson in family and keeping the family together. So taking that away from people kind of destroys a part of the learning process of family and the importance of it. It's more than just a drum. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's more.
Absolutely.
It has lessons in life that it teaches you a lot. A lot of times people want to learn, and you learn things about their life by watching how they play drums. In other words, if you're like in America, when people play percussion instruments, they'll do a drum circle. They call it the drum circles now. Well, I call it thunder drumming. What do I mean by that? It's a hobby. They don't have, there's no rhyme or reason other than I bought the drum and I want to play it. They don't know anything about how to construct the drum, how to provide for the drum, the traditional rhythms on the drum, what was the purpose of the drum. They don't even have that in their minds. So that I call it thunder drum. In other words, whatever. You know what I'm saying? But it ain't like that. It's
right.
not like that on the planet. If you're gonna play Brazilian music, you have to study. You can't just jump up in a batucada or samba.
As
Yeah, I got
context.
you. I understand.
Or actually, I just want to also be clear, Calvin Tillery is in, and he's loving this interview. And Linda Tillery, I bet, was a kind of a...
Kelvin, hey Kelvin.
Calvin's, Mike, you know, Mike Clark says, I seem to know this guy from somewhere, he said.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, or funk. I hate labels, but I mean, explain how you work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now look at this. This is. So this is a pan pipe. Now in Africa, they have the Babenzele people. They have just one of these. They have one. Say that one. It has just one. They don't need all this. Let's just take one of these little pipes and give maybe one to one this guy over here and this pitch to this guy over there. And this is my pitch. So now you got this whole thing going on with just one note in the voice. Now I learned that from the Babenzele. I mean, people call them pygmies.
Yeah.
But that's the N word. Don't.
Okay, so Babentele.
Yeah, well, the Babingas, they got different ethnic groups. They got different names for them.
Pygmies is actually a very racist term.
It's a term. Yeah, it's like Aborigine in Australia.
I do.
They are not Aborigines in Australia. You don't want to call the Corey people Aboriginal.
So much work to be done.
Yeah, oh man, the work is ridiculous. The work that has to be done, it'll probably be a couple of thousand years just to straighten out some of the stuff we've done in the last 10. But anyway, this is an example of what I did that exact, but it was a little different. Ooh, 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 ooh. So that's something I did on a recording called Headhunters, which was released in 1973, I believe.
That's right.
And it was on a tune called Watermelon Man. And so I took that concept. I created my own part. I had to He popularized it. And there's a little vocal that said, Watermelon Man. And then in 1972, around there, I introduced Herbie to the Babenzele music. And I said, man, I want you to hear this. And he said, wow, I've really never heard anything like that. I said, well, you know, so we decided to I created maybe 5 or 6 different parts. It was a composition of
You in of it, was that done all live in the studio
I did it all live.
with Mace? I mean, you started it up with that
Hey, I did parts. It's parts. There's several parts.
parts. Thank you, parts.
Yeah, different parts. Just like you.
But you just didn't. I want to be clear. There was no overdubbing.
No, I did. I had to overdub. I couldn't play all the parts by myself at one time.
Which one was in this? Do you remember which part was done?
This was the basic. That was the original part, and then I built other parts because there was a baritone part. Then there was a part that was higher. I can't even sing that high, but it was like.
That's right. That's right.
So when you put them all together, see, with this kind of music, it's like hockey. You know, hockey is a system where one person plays an instrument, but that instrument only has a range of maybe 4 or 5 notes. Then they have to have another instrument. It's the same one, but it's a bigger one or a smaller one. In the range, it'll have 4 or 5 notes. So 3 or 4 people will play the melody, but they take over if the notes and the melody come into their range, then they play that note. So you can have some people playing ink, ding, like ink, ink, and other guys are ingu, 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 you know, and everybody's playing their own part. So this is similar in that respect, but it's a composition. It's something that I think I know, if I'm not mistaken, what is it?
Flood?
No, wait a minute. There's a Smithsonian.
Ah.
The Smithsonian deemed this arrangement with these whistle parts on these parts on it as one of the 500 most important arrangements ever on the planet. So
in the history of music,
exactly.
all the classical music, everything.
From what I understand,
wow.
They picked 500 compositions of their importance. They said, okay, let's figure out what's the 500 most important musical compositions that we can come up with. This was one of them, you know, which is. I mean, I don't really put too much credence in that. I mean, I don't put a high value on that because, I think the Smithsonian and the work they have done is very important, but I know that they had something to do with folkways and with UNESCO and these recordings that people were doing.
I did tracing the lineage of,
the thing about it, did they pay those people that they recorded? I don't think so. They sold those records. They're still selling them. Do those people that actually recorded, that did the music, did they get paid? I doubt it, because I think people go around with this scholastic, with this educational, institutionalized their concept of what is worthy. You know, we can even to think that you have a position of qualifying or saying something is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in importance. Who are you? How do you get that power? Where did you get that from? You know what I'm saying? To me, that's kind of suspect. You know, although I see the work they've done, but I've also seen the negative part of it.
Well, I just wonder also, I mean, again, this was very sophisticated parts you put together. That track also became popular.
Very popular.
And so you always have to sort of check it and say, I'm not going to hang on to that so much, because the stuff you were doing with Batakoto was...
Yeah, but no one ever heard it.
That's what I'm saying. But I wanted you to just explain to people these Billy Cobham was hanging with him and Wayne Cobham, and they wound up they grew up I'm gonna say Brooklyn, and there was just all sorts of incredible drumming, but there wasn't. I wanted you to talk about the Santeria that Pablo Landrum exposed you to.
Number one, we needed to get rid of the word Santeria.
Okay, let's just toss it aside.
No, let me tell you something. See, if you deal with Puerto Rico or Cuba or Venezuela or even places in Mexico like Veracruz. This Santeria thing, okay, where did that word come from? It's not African. And I'll tell you what happened. This is what I think happened.
Yeah.
And on the island of Cuba, when the Lucumí people came, were brought to Cuba, a lot of these people it was as a result of warfare in Africa. You know, warring tribes or ethnic groups, and then there's this people captured. You know, the spoils of war. You know, people had prisoners. You know what I'm saying? They wound up being sold into slavery a lot of times, and so you get these people came to Havana, Matanzas, Oriente, to Santiago de Cuba. They were dispersed across the island, and they were from different ethnic groups. Well, there were enough of the Lucumí, there were enough of the Arara, there were enough of the Kalabali, there were enough of the Congo people for them to kind of unite and keep their traditions together. And some of these traditions spilled over into each other's. They had to, as a people, as black people, they had to bring those things together into one nation. And it happens to happen a lot with the Lucumí, because they embraced the Congo things, Palo Mayumbe, Abakwa from the Kalabali, Yesa for Oshun. They brought all these things together in the Lucumí tradition and the Arara tradition. So here's what happened. As whites came around it, there were some who feared it and said, oh, this is some evil devil stuff. Wrong. Okay, it's people's way of worshiping God.
Right.
It might be Allah to them. It might be Olodumare to them. It might be Yahweh, whatever. It's the same entity. You know what I'm saying? These people were not polytheistic. Okay, they believed in a supreme being, like Europeans did. It was just, hey, whatever did that, it's happening. Okay, so
it's monotheistic.
Yeah, what happened was, over a period of time, the whites began to appreciate it. Okay, now, the word santo means saint. Santa is saint. It's feminine for saint. Okay.
Santo is the male. But
I'm just saying this just means saint.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's Spanish. It's Latin based. It has nothing to do with African stuff. So now all of a sudden you have this large influx of whites, and whoever is like appreciating it. They like to party. They like to toque de santo. They have to guemilere. They said, oh man, they playing them drums. At one time it was, oh man, those drums, they're driving me crazy. But then after a period of time, it became, wow, they began to appreciate it. Just like the enslaved people, the black people, the men and women who play banjo. That's an African thing.
Absolutely.
That's an African instrument.
Dig.
Black people don't even play it no more. You know what I'm saying?
I just saw Tootie Heath. He loves the banjo.
Yeah, but I'm just saying,
he misses the banjo.
A lot of people, in today's world, it's an instrument that is not used very much with black music in America anymore. It is maybe in New Orleans or some other places in the South, but it's not. It's not.
Absolutely.
It's not as prevalent.
Absolutely.
As it was before. People moved on.
Well, you had the situation where the saxophone was the lead improv instrument, and then it was the Freddie Green rhythm strumming guitar, and then all of a sudden people plugged in, and the electric guitar became a solo instrument.
Yeah, well, we can thank Bo Diddley.
Bo Diddley,
for that. But it's funny though.
Did you play with any of those cats in Detroit? Any of the old school blues cats?
I may have run across or played something, but I
before you quit the racetrack and headed out to Cali?
I think I left in '68.
There's plenty of time to play with those blues masters, because Burrell was playing with all those cats too.
Kenny Burrell.
Or at least he saw those cats come through.
Well, man,
John Lee and those.
I was removed from that. I was more listening. I was listening to Donald Byrd, Kenny Burrell,
Pepper Adams,
Yusef Lateef,
Dorothy
Dorothy Ashby, Harold McKinney.
Was Dorothy a Detroit?
Yeah.
Oh, I loved her, man.
So I mean, that was my orientation. I mean, I was too young to have played with these blues guys. Really, I mean, I was young when I left, and I did. I was the last person I worked with before I left Detroit was an organ player by the name of Rod Lumpkin. Nimrod Lumpkin.
Nimrod.
There is not an organ player on the planet Earth that can play better than Nimrod.
Are you really? Is he still with? Is he still with us?
Jimmy Smith couldn't touch it.
Get it? That's a bold statement, man. That's a bold.
I mean, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I love Jimmy Smith and Jack McDuff. I was a kid. I listened to these organ players religiously, and Detroit and Chicago were areas where organ trios were very popular. Okay, an organ trio, like you only needed an organ player and a drummer to have a band. But he would, if it was a B3, they had the pedals, and if you couldn't play the pedals, you don't know B3. Okay?
Dig.
Okay, now, Nimrod Lumpkin. See, let me tell you, there's a bench, you know, and it's a long bench. So the organ has a long bench. Nimrod Lumpkin would sit his hands on the bench and elevate his butt off the bench and hold himself up like this and play a solo with both feet. Okay, like you wouldn't believe. Like you would not believe this guy could slide across the pedals. It would be like, some knights running across the floor, but it would be smoking. He was playing in the church with his father when he was 5. When he was 5 years old, he was playing for the services. He was a prodigy. And I have never heard anyone play organ like him, ever. So, but the proof is in the pudding. Nimrod, you need to come forward, Nimrod. I talk to him every now and then, but that was the first gig I ever did that got paid was from Mr. Nimrod Lumpkin. We were schoolmates.
He was playing bass and organ, and you were playing hand drum, or were you playing trap?
He had a drummer. His name was Sparky. He had a drummer, and he had sometimes a guitar player with him. And then I would come in. I was playing sax and flute at the time, so I'd go in and I'd sit in with him. And after a while, he started paying me. You had to pay your dues. You had to play free before you got paid. You had to show that you
had to play free jazz.
Yeah. I love it, man.
Yeah, that's what Dexter Gordon used to say, because I don't play free jazz. I play the kind of music you get paid,
but free jazz.
Free jazz, man. Okay. Tell me, I mean, we're looking at the poster up there, the Sonny Rollins Quintet. So many beautiful cats. Al Foster's on there. Yeah. Some really unsung cats too that I'm not. There's Bill Summers on percussion.
Jerome Harris on bass and Mark Soskin on piano. Mark Soskin was in the Bay Area. And I think Jerome was in New York, and of course, Sonny and Al Foster did Miles and all kinds of
Miles was holding up a sign saying Al Foster next to him. You wouldn't even announce that.
But it was wonderful being with Al, because he and I, when we traveled with Sonny, me and Al would sit back and he'd tell me all these crazy stories about Miles, bro. I mean, I can't even repeat the story. I won't even mention some stuff.
Wow, that's raw. I mean, there's a lot. As a leader, I've talked to McLaughlin and DeJohnette and Cobham, and every time Miles would Bitches Brew, for instance, he'd just whisper in McLaughlin's, play the guitar like you don't know how to play the guitar. He would get in their head. Next thing you know, McLaughlin's like totally freaked out, but he plays this tune. Miles loved what he did. He would have this sort of Zen master quality to him of unpredictability. As a leader, do you believe that that's a strong quality of leadership? Not being an asshole, but being unpredictable. It seems to me a lot of the cats that a lot of the great leaders inspired their accompanists because they didn't know exactly where they were mentally all the time.
Well, that kind of destroys the word lead and leadership. It depends on how you define lead. But I mean,
let me put it this way. I was talking to a guitar player who, Fareed Haq, who he was on the bandstand, and he was irritable because the trio that he was with, they were just going through the motions. And he had played with the AACM, with Famadou Don Moy and those cats. And he starts This is in front of an audience, live gig, and he starts to play to the heavens for 5 minutes, just shredding the guitar like, way outside the bounds of straight ahead jazz.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, after he did that, the audience was a little bit in shock. But the band, he jolted them out of their. How do you get people out of their original mindset to play spiritual music? I ask you.
Well, you can't play spiritual music without the training. It's for me, what's spiritual. I mean, I guess to some people, when they get on the bandstand or they're playing music, they say it's spiritual. But when I think of spiritual music, I'm going to play a specific rhythm for a specific purpose. It's not going to be something that I don't like the word improvisation either.
Okay.
I don't think it exists really. It can with someone who isn't disciplined. But if you look at it, when people use the word, and it's been used to describe African music, y'all just didn't know it. They were not making it up. You understand? See, some people think when they saw the Africans and they were playing, they described it as, they beat the drums until they were in a frenzy.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
It was undisciplined.
Yeah,
there was no
order to it.
That's the farthest thing from the truth.
They couldn't hear it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But look, I'm going to be very honest with you. There's very little improvisation of any in traditional African music. And that's something that people can't get ready for. No, I'm just being honest.
This is why I do my show, man. I mean, so what's the right word? It's
Well, I'm just saying when we.
You know what I mean by spiritual music? I mean when the band is all thinking as one.
Oh, okay. I know what I know what you're referring to. When everything clicks, the magic happens. But it's accidental.
Explain how it's accidental.
Well, no, there's no intent to it. Let me give you an example.
I love it. I love it.
Let me give an example. In a ceremony that I play in, say there's a spiritual ceremony we're going to do here in my house, and we have to play drums, or anywhere in the country, or anywhere where these drums are played, or any real drums of that nature are played. We play what's called the oro y bodu, the oro seco they call it in Spanish. Well, seco is dry, meaning there ain't no singing in it. It's just the rhythms for the universe. We're going to open the door first. We're going to open the universe up and invite the universe to come before we start the main deal. We got to invite everybody.
I love it.
So you got to do it in a specific order.
I love it.
Eligwa oguno chosi obaloke inle yakoto babaloaye osaino sun dada oge aga you orisha oko ibegi orumi la, maybe you could put them up in there, and then after that blah blah shango yewa yemaya boya, and it's a rhythm for everything in nature. That is spiritual music. So because you're not improvising, you're actually playing a specific rhythm for the ocean. I want the ocean, I want Yemaya, Yemonja to be here. I want to call that energy. That, to me, that aspect is what I most appreciate about the Afro-Cuban drummer. He gave that back to me because we had lost that. We had lost the identification of what rhythm. See, look, when Smano plays some funk, let me play you about that rhythm to show you what I'm saying. You tell me, this is where the funk came from. I'm gonna play a rhythm.
Yeah.
You still hear that in the music today. Okay, so where did it come from? It came from the religious and spiritual music of Africa. There ain't nothing new that's being done in the fusion that we did. This is the OG funk. This kind of music is what created jazz, what created the Negro spiritual, what created gospel, what created R&B and hip hop.
It's organization.
It's rhythm. It's like rhythm. It's these rhythms that are, the only difference now is a drummer today in America, be he white or black, if he play a rhythm, I can say that's Ogun. He can't do it because he's not trained to know that. The Afro-Cuban drummers, the Haitian drummers, the drummers in Brazil that play Atabac, and the guys that are playing in Africa that really know what they're doing, It's so precise. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. There's no improvisation. Now, when it comes to some social music, like the Black American music is the most popular music on the planet. Okay, period. There's no doubt about it. When I go to Japan, African American culture is so deep. The Japanese boys are sagging. Okay, their pants is on their ass. They're trying to imitate this culture.
Yeah. They keep it alive.
They keep it alive, and this happens in China and in Europe, everywhere. It's not a racial thing. It's fact. It's just a fact. It ain't no like we're better. It's just a fact.
Right. The facts are hard. Stubborn. It's very stubborn.
Everybody is rapping. Okay. Believe me, the Eskimos are rapping, and even the neo-Nazis are rapping. Okay?
The neo-Nazis are rapping, and I love seeing Chinese and Japanese rap
They're
too.
doing it. It's happening. It's just so popular, but it's all coming from that same root. It's all coming from the West African, Central African. Our music is most influenced by West Africa and Central Africa. Why? Because most of the enslaved people came from that area, and they brought the funk with them. They brought the funk. This is what made the music do what it. This is what the combination of a black musician learning classical music and knowing the African thing created jazz. That's what did it. He heard some other stuff. Yeah, I like that too, because the Africans that play music in that era, for some reason, they didn't discriminate. They didn't say, I don't like white music because it's from a white man. No, it wasn't from the white man. It's music. It's from God. You don't own it. You see, so they're not discriminating like that. If they hear something, it's not going to be foreign. If that's something like, oh, that's some new shit I can add to mine. That creates jazz. Doesn't that create jazz?
Oh man!
I mean,
what is this? It's not. You wanted it in the picture, but I want you to.
Well, it's.
I mean, can you explain what it is?
Yeah, it's Elegua. And Elegua is the Orisha.
Orisha.
Yeah. That opens the road and protects your door. Yeah, and I'm a priest of Elegua. As a priest, my name is Eshubi. I'm the Elegua that sits in the middle of the crossroad. And if I don't want you to get by, you have a problem. But that's not me personally. That's just an entity. That's not. I don't have that power. I'm just saying that particular Elegua or Eshu is called Eshubi. I was ordained with that name. So, I have many Eleguas. I have several.
The one thing I wanted was so inspiring. I could talk to you for hours about this stuff, but
but before you ask me this, I saw something on TV. I was sitting here yesterday, and I want to mention it.
Go ahead.
Okay, when you hear the word Santeria, okay, remember that was something someone made up, and what you see or what you may think about it or have heard about it, you need to re-examine it. Because from my perspective, from the Lukumi perspective, there are people in every race and in every profession that are charlatans. And there are people that will misuse Catholicism, as Catholic priests have done with little children.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It's just a fact.
No, you're nailing it, yeah.
But there are bad people in every walk of life. And there are great people in every walk of life. There's nothing wrong with Lukumi, which you might incorrectly call Santeria.
Say again one more.
Lukumi.
Thank you.
Or you may call it Santeria, or you may call it voodoo. Understand, ain't nobody trying to do nothing bad to anybody. And that's some Hollywood shit, okay?
What did Mongol call? What did Mongol?
Mongol was in there. I mean,
because
but there were many people, even black Cubans, who say Santeria, but they're not looking at it the way I do. Analyzing and saying, what is it really? See, they're not seeing it they're not thinking about that part of it. It's a part of life in Cuba. Cuba is not Ricky Ricardo and I Love Lucy, okay? It's a black place. You know, it's not. We have a misconception because of propaganda.
Of course.
Yes.
Well, I mean, most cats thought that Tarzan was the only thing that came out of Africa for so long.
Yeah, this is true. You know, Rama of the Jungle and all kinds of BS. But Tarzan and all that, you got to reevaluate things. You know, there's a lot of that has happened so incorrectly, and the information that's been disseminated, a lot of misinformation. You see what I'm saying? So you can't believe everything you see on TV. I saw something on television yesterday. It was some kind of one of those forensic shows or something, you know, escape or some old crazy stuff. And they had something about some guy in Santeria, and they had him with some beads on, and they had some lady that she had gotten crazy, and we was killing stuff. And they just give things of such a terrible twist that it's not good, you know.
Well, they hype it up so much they take away the actual root. I mean, what you're talking about is just the root. But this is the thing I wanted to ask you about. It's so important. You were at Cal Berkeley, and you were doing a lot of TA work at that time, and Herbie invited you to a gig, and you brought a lot of your percussion. And,
wasn't that much.
Well, I just want to go. I'm just going to riff on this, and then you break it down, because it's a lesson in resiliency. You show up at the gig. Herbie comes in, looks at all this legitimate percussion, and says, "What the fuck is that?"
And he said, "What's all this shit?"
What's all this shit? And you know what? Here's the thing. A lot, like for instance, if I was you at that time, I would have been, well, okay, I feel dissed, but I'm going to still play. You left. And then I want you to explain. Tell me the truth. Is when he came back, he was driving you. He said, "Did he apologize? Did he know he fucked up?"
Well, it was some months later.
About 6 months. He came back.
I think I could.
I just want you to tell the story of what it culminated into.
Well, you know, he invited me. My group Bata Koto performed on the UC Berkeley campus and opened for Herbie and his band, which was
the Fat Albert Rotund.
No, we talking about Buster Williams, Julian Prieston, Billy Hart,
Benny
Maupin, Eddie Henderson, Patrick Gleason,
Dr. Gleason.
That was the band, and we, my group opened, and we did traditional Haitian, Cuban, Brazilian, folkloric stuff. And he invited me. He came. He talked to me. You know, I mean, he said, "Man, I really like what you're doing. You know, would you like to come and sit in with me?" And I said, "Man, I'm like blown away. I'm like Herbie Hancock. Of course, I want to come sit in." And so that night, I went over to the club, and I had a duffel bag with some percussion instruments. He never really saw those instruments because they were in a bag, and I had a couple of a conga and a quinto, or a conga and a tuba, which are conga drums, if you want to call it. Some people say Congo drums, which is wrong.
Right.
But anyway, I put my instruments not even on the stage, but on the side of the stage, and I was sitting in the club waiting for him to come, and he came into the club. It was maybe 45 minutes, an hour before the show, and he walked past, and he kind of glanced over at the stage, and he said, "What's all this shit?" I'm like, you know, I have a very high respect for the instruments. So when he said that, I just knew he was on a certain level, you know, not that high of a level to do that.
Weren't you playing these instruments opening for him though?
Yeah, but man, I don't care. You know, he just came in the club with for
what's
whatever
this
reason.
shit?
For whatever reason, it could have been like he forgot that he invited me, or that he didn't expect to see all that shit over there. So, but for me, it was just a sign to get up and leave.
I dig that, and you, even though there was an opportunity to play, you were like, "There's
no, I didn't want to play with you if you could say that."
So then, explain
I'm not into that. I mean, that's like, you know, telling me to get up and leave. I mean,
well, then it seems what's the greatest thing about this is because when he came back, he's like, "You're like, I don't know how great a guy this is." He's talking about.
Well, let me tell you what happened.
Yeah, please.
I was a TA, which is a teacher's assistant, for a professor named Ollie Wilson. I was the only undergraduate TA in the history of UC Berkeley, but you had to be a graduate student to be a TA. But in my field, there was no one. It just wasn't. I had an independent major in African music and whatever. And then my advisor was Ali Wilson, who helped me set up my curriculum and my independent major. So I had a major no one else had because I had to petition for it. So I had a special relationship with this one professor who was what was the only black professor they had in the music department ever. You know,
what's his name? What was his name?
Ali Wilson.
Ali Wilson. Bless him, man.
Very, very, very famous guy. He did electronic music. So, at any rate.
Really?
Yeah, that was his thing. And
that was fantastic.
At any rate.
Herbie comes back.
Yeah, well, Herbie was going to do a lecture in my class, the class that I was a TA for.
Wow,
Ali Wilson.
man.
So when he told me,
we got people. Who's this cat? Yeah, well, I mean, he's live on Facebook right now.
Hey, man, come on, live on Facebook, Bill's house.
Yeah, come on in, man.
Really quick, how long are you leaving that lot there?
I'm not gonna leave it there long as I can.
Okay.
Are you the owner?
Yeah.
Okay, man. Look, I told the guy yesterday I was gonna move it within hours.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's not a permanent thing, dude. What happened is a friend of mine had a baby, and she had some baby furniture she wanted to move, and I said I have to bring my trailer. And I went over there and I said, God, can I leave my trailer here for 4 hours? And it's been there for 14 hours, okay? But I'm gonna move it.
I didn't think so.
Good, man. No problem. I love man.
Are you just recording stuff?
We're having a ball here on Facebook.
Actually, we're on live.
We're live on Facebook.
We're live around.
No, you're just doing your job, man.
Yeah,
I was just checking.
This is the coffee guy next door. He's a good guy.
Great mojo.
Man, thank you, man. You just bought some coffee. I'm gonna move it, bro.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
So Herbie was going to come and lecture in the class that you were TAing.
Yeah, see, that's what happens over here at Bill's studio.
Yeah, well, I mean, people, this is your room. This is one room in your universe.
Yeah, this is it. This is one of them. Right, but at any rate, he was gonna come. So I had to meet Herbie and drive him to the class, but he didn't know where it was. He couldn't get there. He would have taken him forever. So I was meeting him at Sather Gate, and I had a vehicle to bring him up to the music building. So on the way to the music building, we're in it, and I'm already like, I mean, look, to be honest, I'm not feeling Mr. Hancock. I'm just not there. I mean, for what had happened, I thought that maybe he would have been on a higher level. So I mean, not that I was diminishing him any.
No.
He was still a great musician, a great person, I guess, but he didn't show that side to me. So I'm driving up there, and he said, yeah. I think we may have. Do I know you? So I'm like, I'm just not really feeling. I'm just like, nah, I'm being kind of stupid, really. So, but we eventually talked about it, and I told him what happened, he just said, he said this about 10 times in a row. I did that. Did I do that? I did that. So it just went off.
And were you able to say yes? Yes.
I was able to say yeah, it happened. And the final thing was, he said, "Would you come and sit in with me tonight?" And I said, "Sure, I would." So I went and sat in, and things took off from there.
Well, he said, "I want you to sit in," and you get down to Santa Barbara, and and that was Alice.
Well, I'm gonna tell you the first.
So there was a first gig before Alice.
Yeah, but I did a bunch of stuff with that group that he had.
With Dr. Gleason, Buster,
yeah, but I
Juliet.
just went to sit in.
And that was when he invited you that night. That was for M1 Dishi band.
Yeah, and maybe 5 or 6 other occasions over a 6-7 month period or whatever it was. I went and sat in with those guys. I didn't know I was being auditioned, but I guess I was. No, I'm sure he was. That's what was going on. But then the first time he hired me for an actual gig, he said, "Man, I want you to do a gig in Santa Monica at the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium. I'll have your equipment, and my manager will call you, and they'll take care of getting your equipment and your room, and we'll pay you, and you should take care of your airline tickets." He did the regular thing a professional.
It was a gig.
Yeah, it was a gig. So I got there. I had my gear. I'm delivered to the venue, and Herbie wasn't there yet, but I did get on. I went to the stage, and I saw a grand piano and a harp. And so I'm just sitting there waiting for the band to get there, and the band never shows up. And then Herbie comes in, and I said, well, Herbie, where's the band? He said, we're the band, me, you, and Alice Coltrane. That was the first gig I really did with him.
Oh.
That was the first paid gig I did with Herbie. But that was, I must say, it was pretty enlightening. It was quite a show, you know, considering that I was a John Coltrane fan and an Alice Coltrane fan. You know, they blazed the trail for a lot of stuff, you know.
Before my phone battery dies, I just wanted to thank you for being a shaman warrior and a leader.
Shaman warrior.
Well, you know, I mean, I think the point is this. I'm not sure. I got to believe that
A shaman warrior.
Herbie might have said that 10 times. Did I say that? Did I say that? But not everybody would have handled it the way you did. A lot of cats would have stayed and sat in that night and probably never done it again. And you actually were like, you know, it's about dignity and it's about respect, especially for the indigenous rhythms. And I just wanted you to.
Yeah, I understand. I appreciate it.
No, but what I was going to say, we talked for an hour, and I was just hoping you could finish with maybe something on some rhythm, some vibration to put out to the world today.
Man, what can we do?
Because I want to cross the street later.
Well, you know what I'm saying. I don't know what to tell you about that. What could we do here? I mean, so this is my cuica. I like this instrument. This is one of the instruments that I really liked when I was learning different instruments. I thought it was a fascinating thing that you could actually. Ooh. I mean, you know, I'm not really playing it well.
But it's the mating call for lions in Africa?
No, you know, the drum actually originated in Africa. I mean, you see there's a stick on the inside. And to really play it well, you have to tune the skin should be really tight. And I'm using a washcloth to wet it a little bit, but it's not the ideal thing. I used to put a little kerosene on it, which makes it easier to play it and to hold notes. But you see, if you press in the center, you get that high pitch. So if I take my hand off and I hold the stick, now if I hold the stick harder, so if you really can manipulate it, so you know you really have to have it tuned properly to get the proper tension on the skin, so that when you do press it, it doesn't change pitch. So right now I'm like, you know, I'm not really. I don't want to play it.
It's all right. No, you know what's just.
And this is, hey man, this is interesting.
Yeah, what do we got there?
This is something that I picked up from a guy in Germany. Check this out. That's pretty interesting, huh?
Did you ever buy a water phone?
Yeah, I did. I had one. I made one actually.
You made a water phone.
Yeah, they were pretty easy to make.
They're pretty easy to make.
Yeah, you take some hubcaps and you weld them together, and then you would weld these welding things that people use for welding. It's a long thing. You could make them of different lengths. Then you would take and weld them onto this hubcaps that you welded together, and you have a hole on the side of the weld. You put water in it, and then you take a bow from a violin bow or cello bow, and you could bow it and move it, and it would make this. You've heard the sound.
Mind-bending sound.
Not many people were familiar with that. This is another instrument. You know, I mean, like when I'm playing instruments.
Yeah.
I mean, I may have several instruments that I use at the same time. For instance, this is called a cricket, right? So it's supposed to. That's how a cricket sounds, right? So now if I'm playing music, what I've done with my stuff is that I may be playing this with a stick. This is a kabasa.
Right.
I may go. But now some groove is going on. I'm doing that. Oh man, that creates a whole nother vibe. So what I've done is I've tried to take different instruments that I've learned from different cultures, and you were asking me, well, how do you make these things fit? Well, if you know swing, like when you're swinging in America, swing is like. See, they don't really. They do it in Africa on djembes, and they do have that feeling, and it is an African thing, but it's been developed into something else here by drummers, African American.
Because of probably the European harmonies that intersected with it.
I don't think it had anything to do with harmony other than I'm talking about the actual rhythm thing.
The swing rhythm, yeah.
It's just the swing.
Yeah, I did.
It's definitely of African origin, but I'm just saying it was taken to another level in jazz. I think that aspect of jazz, if you can't, if you ain't got that swing,
don't mean a thing.
It don't mean a thing. If you ain't got, but that's important. That groove, they got things called like the shuffle. Michael Clark can wear some shuffle out. This is a specific type of, drumming. You got your shuffle, you got your swing, and you have your, your R&B rhythms. But jazz, you notice one thing that I like about jazz was that in my family, when we listened to jazz, it started with Buddy Bolden and Jelly Roll Morton and people like that. It went back. They went into jazz way back. And then when you listen to what's happening with Count Basie, the swing era, okay, with the big bands, okay, and then into the straight ahead era, the bebop era, okay. Then you had this other era where I grew up in, which started fusion. And it didn't start with Herbie and Weather Report.
No, it started with Chano Pozo and Dizzy.
No, it even started.
Phil Wood said that's when fusion.
Let me tell you where I think it started.
That word is really horrendous. I don't like that word.
Well, let me say this. It started with people like Lee Morgan, Sidewinder.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it started with Hank.
It's so funny. Let me ask you though. See,
like
so someone would say Bob Crenshaw was playing a bass line that made Sidewinder that fusion hit. And I think Billy Higgins might have been on drums. I'm not sure, but Cedar Walton was like, "Fuck Bob Crenshaw." He's like, "That's Lee Morgan's tune."
Yeah, it is.
Right. So you consider that the first?
Well, let me say this.
Yeah.
Where did it start? You know who Bunky Green is?
Sure, I've seen. I don't.
Sonny Stitt. Okay, look. There was an era when I was growing up, like in the 60s.
On Chess Cadet.
50s and 60s, a phenomenon happened.
Yeah.
And it started with tunes like Sidewinder, because all of a sudden they were using almost like a funk groove with this jazz, which made it more accessible to the general public. It was more appealing to the people. They could understand it.
Radio play.
Yeah, but they could. People in general could understand it. Like, okay, Horace Silver, Song for My Father. That was a huge hit as a jazz song. Jive Samba, Cannonball Adderley. I don't know if you remember that song.
I do, yeah.
It was on R&B radio. Well, they played it on R&B radio, and then there were. But that was, to me, that was how it was obvious that there was a marriage between some funk and some jazz. So you got people like Cool Heart. What was my man? What was that other saxophonist that played electric sax? Eddie Harris. Swiss Movement, Eddie Harris, and Les McCann.
Absolutely.
Okay, you talking about getting people fired up on some jazz? Remember that compared to what? Make it
Donald Dean on drums, man.
That
unreal stuff.
To me, that was.
There was a marriage, though. You used the word marriage.
Yeah, there was a marriage.
Right.
It was definitely. Well, now we're going to take this was is esoteric to some people, to a lot. A lot of people couldn't understand Charlie Parker, okay? A lot of people didn't understand that music. You know, you have someone like Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie. Dizzy, I think, had more to do with, the fusion aspect than Charlie Parker did. Because Dizzy respected the Caribbean. He had an album called Jambo Caribe.
Blue Hyena too. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he had Chano Pozo. Now Chano Pozo, believe it or not, was a very heavy Afro-Cuban drummer who knew all of the things that I'm talking about.
Oh, absolutely.
And Abakwa, and he knew all of that. He was probably a heavy practitioner in Lukumi, or what people call something. I'm sure he was. But look at his untimely demise. Look how he went. And then same with Lee Morgan. I mean, you know, even with Miles, a lot of people, when I was growing up, they idolized Miles. And there was only a few records that Miles did that I liked. And that was Live in Europe. And who was the saxophonist on that?
Cannon, maybe?
Johnny Griffith. There was somebody on there. I mean, I liked the record more because of the saxophonist on it.
Yeah.
You know, but I wasn't a Miles Davis fan. And I wasn't bitten by the Miles bug either. When I got with Herbie, there seemed to be, like you said before, Miles had this power, more like he was some kind of guru.
I mean, McLaughlin said he was a Zen master.
Yeah,
just
well, let me say this.
Yeah.
Okay, so I learned a big lesson about that when I met Miles. And Herbie introduced me to Miles. And Benny Maupin was with me. We were together. And I was highly disappointed. I'm sorry. I was like, I wish I hadn't met him. I would have had more respect for him. So I didn't get bit by that bug, man. I'm sorry.
You know, but I've been bit by the Bill Summers bug. Hey, man, I want to have a clean break here, man, I want to go get some beignets. But
beignets!
What an honor, man. Thank you for being part of the show. People had a ball. Please share this, comment on it, and really, this is what my show is about. Rhythm is love, rhythm is enlightenment, vibration is.
But don't get me wrong. I love Miles. I love you, Miles.
Oh, come on. You know, it is what it is. I mean, he was not the friendliest cat. But somehow he had a way of coming back around to
It was wonderful, man. We toured with him. The Headhunters toured with him. We toured together, his band and the Headhunters.
with them Tume.
With him, Tume.
Bless him, because
what was the guitar player from Chicago? Oh man, I know all these guys. Reggie Lucas.
Oh yeah, no. Cozy.
Pete Cozy.
Pete Cozy, man.
And Tume. I loved everybody in that band, but every night, this is what I got from Miles. Every night we were on tour. The band would come out, they'd play for a decent amount of time. Miles would come out sideways, sliding across the floor, turn his back to the audience, bend his head over, play a few notes and slide off stage. And although some people thought that was, they got what they paid for, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry, everybody. I know y'all.
No, you were there, man.
I was there. I
mean, Mtume said that every night they went to Planet Zunar. You know, they left the planet, they went to a different universe. So in some ways, maybe you're looking at it one way as an audience member. You're looking at it and saying, he's making every note count.
I wasn't in the audience.
No.
I wasn't in the audience. I was on the side. I was on stage right. I was in the wings watching. Man, I love music. And music, and I'll say this. Every time as a kid, I looked at the album cover, I thought there was a God on it. If it was Hank Mobley, or if it was Pepper Adams, if it was Dave Brubeck or McCoy Tyner, I was mesmerized. And these people were given a special place on the planet by God, by the heaven Otonowa, by heaven itself. It was given this gift to take to the planet. You can't fuck that up. You can't, no, you can't do that. You cannot do that. And the young musicians out there, or young artists that are out there, you do not follow that lead. Don't ever follow that lead. You never want to do what Miles did.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Right, I dig.
I mean, I love him. Miles is a giant. Yeah, but so is an ant. You know what I'm saying? An ant can pick up 8 times his weight. I hope ants never get as big as us. You know what I'm saying? Because we're going to be over. It'll be finished. But man, look, that music is a gift. It's not music. It's a language. It is a spirit. It's an orisha. Music is a power. And if in the right hands, it's as much power as 1 billion atomic bombs. If you now just think, if you use the power properly, we could change the face of the planet. Okay, but it takes using the power correctly. So those, I don't have respect for anyone who disrespects that power.
From Hiroshima to New Orleans, Bill Summers, much love, brother. Thank you
Much
for being.
love.
Yeah, man.
Jake,
Bill Summers.
here we
Yeah.
are again.
Legions
Me and
of
Jake.
fans, man. This is
Yeah.
the Jake Feinberg Show. Looking to enlighten through rhythm. Thank you, Bill. We'll see you all
Thank you,
later.
man.
All right. Peace.